thanks to everyone who's tuned in for tonight's MSC 2025 AGM. Good to see so many of you. I'm just going to start off this meeting by acknowledging that Mountain Safety Collective meet, work and travel on the traditional lands of the Ngarigo, Yamatang, Tanarung, Dutaroa and the Gurnai Kurnai people. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. I'm going to introduce the MSC committee. So we've got Craig, President of Operations and Program Director, Owen, Communications Director and Vice President, Coralie, Treasurer, Rolf, Merchandise, Membership and ATC Manager, Sam, Head of Fundraising, and myself, Mel, as Secretary. For those that stick around to the end tonight, we'll be having a door prize, so make sure you're here for that. I'll quickly run through some housekeeping and then we can get started. If everyone can keep their Zoom on mute throughout the meeting, there'll be time for Q&A at the end, and just feel free to use the chat box throughout the meeting with any questions that arise, and we'll read out your questions on your behalf along with the answers at the end. I'm going to start the meeting with a motion to accept the 2024 AGM minutes. Can I have someone from the committee to raise the motion to accept the minutes?
Yes.
Two of you.
I'll second Coralie's motion.
Okay, amazing. Minutes have been accepted. So we've got a snapshot of tonight's agenda here, which you should have all received prior to the meeting by email. We anticipate the meeting is going to run for about 45 minutes or so. All right, I'm going to open the floor to Craig, who will present the operations report.
Thanks, Mel.
All right.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly have a little synopsis of what happened this year in Victoria and New South Wales. First thing I wanted to say is we had a really big observation field team this year. Between the two states, there were about 10 in each, so 20 strong. So just great to see every year there's more and more people either upskilling, coming out of the woodwork, wanting to get involved and putting their hands up to be a part of the team. So thanks to everybody that you can see on the screen here. There's too many to list, but they were all really appreciated. In particular, there's a gentleman here by the name of Tyson Reddy. Tyson came over from Canada for the season. It was really great to have him in the program. What Tyson brought to the program was he not only is he a fully certified guide and an instructor for both the Canadian Avalanche Association as well as the Canadian Ski Guide Association, but he also has a seat in Avalanche Canada currently as one of their public forecasters. So he just brought over a wealth of knowledge and was also really keen to get involved with the Australian program. What we do here is different than what is in Canada. In particular, we forecast for other hazards more than just avalanche, as you know. We forecast for weather hazards as well as the surface hazard. And anyway, long story short, Tyson thought it was really interesting being part of a different program, picking some things up from us here to take back to there. And also he brought a lot of things to us here. So hopefully we'll see him next year for a bit of time. And he's in Canada now. And as they roll into winter, there's some continued professional development evenings coming up. And one of his presentations is about his time here in Australia. So yeah, I'll try to tune into that and see if we can get it out to the membership somehow. The Alpine Partners Program, this is the second year it's been up and running. A little bit of shuffle in the folks that are in this slide. Some have left and some have joined, but thank you to all those that are in the room. The Alpine Partner Program, it's a good relationship with MSC. We have in the background a InfoX, if you will, or information exchange that is really a spreadsheet of information. So whenever these folks are out in the mountains, they share their information that helps feed into our daily backcountry condition reports for the public. And also they've offered some good discounts to our membership from people within the MSC if you want to take courses and do any of take any of the programs that they offer. Shout out to the public. I'm sure some of you in the room were some of the people that put in observations to MSC. We had 43 public observations throughout the season. This is up from about 30 last year, so still good uptick in public observations and people out there. Anecdotally, in the main range where I live and where I spend most of my time, whenever we were running into people, like I said, anecdotally, people were members of the MSC, read our reports daily, appreciative of what we do. So it's yeah, and Owen will talk more about this in terms of numbers, but it seems like the snowball is growing each year, which is great. So regarding field observations in 2025, we had just under 150 field obs. Those Alpine guiding partners that I mentioned, when they're in the field, they share information. They accounted for for just over 30% of the observations from the season. Public also almost 30%. And then with the MSC field team, like I said, there were 20 members between both states, accounting for about 40% of the observations that went into our daily backcountry reports for the season. I just want to point out something that I'll talk about a bit later, but if you can see the total number of reports throughout the season, the MSC New South Wales team versus the Vic MSC team, as well as our guiding partners. So there's some things we're going to try to work on for 2026 as a little foreshadowing to future goals. So regarding, Owen, if you can go to the next slide, please. Regarding our daily backcountry condition reports, this slide kind of shows a snapshot of a season that was in Victoria. In the Alpine, the red and the yellow, the red being travel not recommended, and the yellow being extra caution advised, and then usual caution is the green. And those two pie charts show the difference between the Alpine and the subalpine. As is typical, the hazards in the Alpine are often a little bit more throughout the season than in the subalpine, in particular when it comes to sliding hazard as well as avalanche hazard in the Alpine. Regarding Victoria's, we had about 25 reported avalanches over the season, split between Victoria and New South Wales. And in New South Wales, very similar sort of situation with the hazards this year. We did have quite a number of bomb severe weather warnings that we take into account for our recommendations to the public. And yeah, but that's all I have to say about that. I can delve into a little bit more in future. The other project that's happening still from the University of Canberra, Dwayne White is still out with his group digging in the snow and taking samples. And Tyson, who I talked about earlier, he spent a day with them this year going out. And if you haven't had a chance, Tyson wrote a little blog article on our website about what's happening with the University of Canberra and that program. So I recommend you checking it out. Other happenings from the team this year, the Scouts in Victoria reached out to us again to give a presentation. Simon Murray stepped up to the plate for that one for us this year on behalf of MSC, which was nice. The OG on mentorship, we had one candidate going to do their stage 5 in New Zealand this spring. So we helped them along. And the Alpine School campus in Dinner Plain, as well as the Snowy Mountain Grammar School in Jindabyne, they reached out to the MSC to come and talk to some of their teachers, and they'd like to incorporate more education about backcountry into their programs. And so this is something we'll evaluate more in the future. Again, we went to New Zealand in the beginning of June, a few of us from the MSC forecasting team to join the Mountain Safety Council of New Zealand's annual training. And then the other thing that Kyle and I and Tyson put together is an Alpine sliding hazard rating system that I'll talk about in the next slide. So because we have a unique forecasting system here in Australia, and we're not just doing avalanche hazard, but the weather hazard and the surface hazard, Kyle and I last year started the process of trying to come up with a little bit more background into how we're actually talking about the sliding hazard, what does it consist of, and to try to be more nuanced in communicating it to the public. So we do have a paper that is behind this. If you're interested in it, please let me know and I can get it to you. We are eliciting feedback. We've presented this to New Zealand. Tyson's taking it back with him to Canada. There'll be some more feedback there. And we are just quietly looking at the ISSW, which is the International Snow Safety Workshop, which is where science meets practice, that is happening in Whistler in 2026. But we'll see. That's a long process, and whether we'll get there or not, we'll keep you posted. But what it means here domestically is on our daily backcountry condition reports. You would have seen now low sliding hazard, moderate sliding danger, high sliding danger. And this replaced localized ice, widespread ice, or no surface ice. And those are all the things I had from the field. I'll look forward to questions at the end of the presentation, and it's over to Owen for communications.
Hey everyone, Owen. So communications covers a few things. The first thing is our in-person events. So this year we had it shaken up a little bit. Arc'teryx ran a series of in-store events in early May when we'd normally be kicking off the Alpine Education Series. But that actually played out quite well for us because it pushed the Alpine Education Series closer to the start, if not past the start of the season, when people were pretty engaged. And in terms of venues this year, we also added Jindabyne and Bright for the first time, which we'll be looking to continue given the success there. Overall, we had 440 attendees, a little bit below capacity, not much, like kind of 10% below capacity at most venues. We did have a shorter lead time to promote it this year, but the outcome was about $7,500 in fundraising, which was great. And I think the big thing that it validated for us was when we hadn't committed to actually doing it this year, we had a lot of people reach out and saying, why aren't you doing it? And we went ahead and did it and validated that there seems to be a strong call for keeping that event running. The other thing that we're involved with, thanks to Arc'teryx, was their winter film tour events. And we ended up having people present at most of their East Coast venues and even down in Tasmania. And that enabled us to kind of get on stage, tell people what we're doing, and we even had a little booth in the foyer at most of the venues. Importantly and generously, we had $5 from every ticket donated back to MSC, which wasn't promoted before the film tour started or at the film tour, but it was a nice gesture from Arc'teryx at the end of the tour there. So a really big thanks to both Arc'teryx and Adventure Entertainment who managed that tour. They gave us a huge amount of support through that. Then if we look at our website, so we had a big increase, and I think last year I presented figures from April through to October, and compared to that period last year, we had a 30% increase. But if you look at, I think June through to the October long weekend, the actual heart of the ski season, we had a 70% increase from last year. And overall, that was 30,000 visits from 17,000 individual people. And we're seeing consistently 1,500 to 2,000 people visiting the site and reading the reports each week. So great results there. Some stats on screen. You can see it definitely kind of picks up as we start promoting the Alpine Education Series in early May there. And then pretty consistent throughout the core of the season, June, July, August. And then a pretty quick taper off as things start warming up. And that's just a slide with the June to October figures. Then we had social media. So we had Dylan Robinson managing our social media this year in a paid capacity. It's a big job. It's like a daily couple of hours just pulling all content together. And so I think the results that we had overall were really promising. Like I said, we had a huge increase in website visits, obviously helped by a good snow season. But I think the thing that surprised us was that 17,000 unique visitors exceeded what we thought was the number of active or interested backcountry recreationalists in Australia. We thought that figure was about 10,000, but it might be a case that there's more than that. Instagram and Facebook, we had modest growth around 10 to 12% across both of those. And interestingly, Instagram has become much, much more important in terms of views. So we're getting consistent 5,000 to 10,000 views per post that goes up on Instagram. And you'll see in the next slide that resulted in hundreds of thousands of views versus a much lower number for Facebook. Demographics have been pretty consistent. 3/4 male, 25% female. Again, that's consistent with our membership base as well. And what we found this year was that anything that was a timely update about conditions from the field was by far the best performing content. So we're going to really focus on that next year. So some charts there if you want to dive into the demographics. And like I said, it's basically 7 times or six or 7 times more views from Instagram posts versus Facebook. The other thing that was really important to us is our media partnerships. So each week we had a post on Mountain Watch doing a summary for the week that just was and the weekend ahead. And you can actually read back through all of those and get a big picture of what was happening through the season. Snow Action, they did some interviews with us. Wild Magazine, I think there was a story about us in one of the, oh no, they helped promote, they provided a whole bunch of prizes for the Alpine Education Series, and then Chill Factor provided some free advertising for us. Again, a big thank you to Adventure Entertainment. All of those titles are backed by Adventure Entertainment. So there's a really strong partnership there these days. Something that came out of left field was with the demise of FatMap, which was absorbed into Strava and quickly killed. There's been a couple of other app developers who've tried to fill that gap, and 2 of them independently reached out to us. So Skida, I think they pronounce it Shida, out of Norway, and Contour.rs out of Austria, backed by a New Zealand guy. So both of them independently reached out to us, said, hey, we're building these apps that fill the FatMap gap. We want to integrate your backcountry conditions reports through the app. Can we have an API to integrate with? I asked Craig about whether we had an API. He had no idea. And then luckily we found that we did actually have something that they could connect to. And they just went ahead, integrated that into their apps. There's no money involved. That's basically, it's good promotion for us. It's good content for them at this point in time. And anyone that sees our reports through those apps, they get linked through the full report on our website anyway. So yeah, we'll see how that goes next year when I think they're rolling out their full features. So in terms of initiatives that we're rolling out through 25-26, so we had an existing ambassador program running for the past few years, so quite a few prominent people. Half of those are very closely engaged with MSC, either as field observers or other roles, and the other half have kind of disconnected a little bit in terms of their relationship with us. So we've made the decision to wind up that ambassador program, and we're going to shift the focus to the field observers. And I think the core thing that we're wanting to achieve there, like I said, around having timely content from the field, having the professionals that are in the field getting that content and having them kind of front and center, enhances our kind of professional perception with our membership and audience. So the other thing that we did this year was expand the Alpine Education Series into mountain towns. That worked well, and I forgot to finish that sentence there. We're going to keep doing it. And I've already talked about our content there. Some nice to do things. So I think if you look at some of those stats earlier, about 3/4 of people are accessing our reports via their mobile devices anyway. There is a lot of logic to us developing a mobile app. Part of that is that we get very constant or frequent requests for people wanting digital versions of our touring maps, and a mobile app would actually enable us to deliver those digitally without giving away the source files. So that's something that we've been wanting to look into. We've been talking about finishing the Vic Backcountry Guide and expanding that into New South Wales for a couple of years now. And there's been talk about revamping the website, which is still the original version that was launched about 8-9 years ago now. All of these things are highly contingent just on our internal resourcing, people with enough time to take things on, and then funding to support those. So there's still things that we're wanting to do. It's simply a matter of whether we've got the resources to do that. So I'll hand over to Sam for
Good segue in. Thanks, Owen. So from a fundraising perspective, this year coming into 2025, we jump forward one there, Owen. Thank you. Yeah, so coming into this year, we had 5 key things that we were focused on. The first one was really getting a sustainable baseline funding that would continue to cover our operations throughout the year. Our partnership with Arc'teryx, which we entered an extension into a new agreement. This was year 1 of that. We've successfully achieved that baseline funding for the next few years ahead. Within that, we wanted to really solidify the 3 key pillars of funding that MSC requires. And historically, we've had a level of government support, and we were looking for some longer term funding there, and looking to also become a medium for conversation within the community, especially for uniformed services. We didn't progress that in the way that we had hoped, and you'll see coming into our goals for 2026, that's very much a resourcing and focus for us. From a membership perspective, we had a tough couple of years, the last 2 years, in line with the snow conditions, as well as some big aggressive promotions we had historically, where we saw a bit of member attrition, people not signing up for future years, as well as a number of you may remember, we also moved to auto annual renewals, and so that has definitely helped us. I'll get into some of those details shortly, but I'd give the membership a big tick. And sponsorship, we really looked this year, especially due to resourcing, to simplify the number of partners that we've been working with, but go a lot deeper with them. And I definitely think that with Arc'teryx and Threadbow was fantastic this year, and I'll talk to those shortly. The final goal for us was really looking to spread the workload. I definitely call out to all of the people that supported us around preparing for these events, running them, being there, etc. The membership drive, they are pretty resource intensive things. So we're really looking to spread that workload and continue that into future years, and reduce any reliance or risk as we have key people rolling off due to tenure in our different groups. We want to make sure that as people roll off, we don't necessarily drop the ball on anything important. So coming into the year, about $50,000 of our funding comes from our memberships. So with individuals, that was retained at $50 a year. And a reminder for people, we do have family memberships available at $130 for the year. After 2 tough years, as I mentioned, we did see a 21% increase in membership this year, getting up to just under 1,000 members. And the key drivers, obviously, improved snow conditions really helps. The membership drive and extending that throughout the winter, and really picking up membership through July and August. And our did not renew, obviously, as people's credit cards expire. That's quite a big administrative activity I'll talk about shortly, but we saw that reduce significantly in 2025. So the membership drive itself, great ongoing support from our sponsors, and really appreciate, it's not just been a tough couple of years weather-wise for us, for a number of these brands. It's been challenging for them, a number of them being retail related. So thank you for sticking with us and continuing. We had over $15,000 in prizes that we gave away this year, so that was fantastic. We changed the format up a bit this year. So we had 3 monthly draws in June, July, and August, and definitely the stats will show, and I've got some insights shortly, that really, especially through August, helped us gain new members. So we had 231 new members this year versus 54 prior year. And that administrative exercise I mentioned before, 133 expired cards versus 350 the year before. 74 of those people did renew, 59 did not, versus 179. So we're really shrinking that attrition rate and looking to be quite efficient in the way that we just remind people and follow them up, because most of the time it was that, look, sorry, didn't realize, and on we go. So New member timing, as I mentioned, here you can see May traditionally is quite strong for us, as we've historically had the membership drive in conjunction with the Alpine Education Series. This year, running the membership drive through to the end of August, partnered up with a strong season and the fact that we sort of pushed that Alpine Education Series back into June, like Owen mentioned earlier, and had some more in-season events and going to the mountain towns with Jindabyne and Bright. The result of that was, May's traditionally been really strong for us. August was bigger than May this year. So we will maintain this focus with the membership drive carrying through the season next year. And we will look to simplify some of the particular prizes and how we get them to the right people. But the membership drive was definitely a success for us. Who are our members? Just a quick insight, and Vic going very strong at 48.6% of our membership base. New South Wales, 34%. Bit of a call out to ACT. Queensland is rapidly catching you. So those in the ACT, stay strong, get the word out to your friends. You're a lot closer to the snow than those Queenslanders. So, and then we've got about just under 6% from the other states and international. We've had a number of our members move overseas and continue to stick with us. So thank you to all of those who may not be benefiting directly from what we do through the season. We really do appreciate your support. But Vic, as always, going strong. Couple of insights, and Owen alluded to earlier, our estimate of the backcountry community size was around that 10K mark here in Australia as a portion of the total snow sports, which there's a lot more data around, being just over a million at 1.2. Well, we've got 989 members at the moment. Of some research we've been doing, and we'll continue to dive into this in future years, but what we believe to be about 2,000 active users, so people heading into the backcountry multiple times during winter. What we can gather from that is we've got about 49% of active backcountry users have been an MSC member before. So we're at 989 now, but with attrition, we've had over 1,000 members who've been with us at some point and know us and continue to look at our reports. So from a penetration perspective, it's pretty strong. The 11,000 active unique visitors to our site during the winter months has had us going back to look and revisit what we really see that backcountry community to be size-wise, and we'll spend a bit of effort doing some research around that in 2026. But I think we've got some great cut through. We are definitely going to look more broadly in terms of our supporter base and non-snow based brands to help us with our fundraising. And there may be some other backcountry user groups who could benefit from our services as well. There's obviously a large cross-country skiing community out of there. I did speak with a number of users there who actually do use our services, even though they're heading out on groomed trails. Moving forward, a huge call out to Arc'teryx. That initial goal that we had of securing some baseline funding, it's not just the financial support. Arc'teryx bring a lot of credibility, connecting us with the community. They've been the perfect partner. So we signed on with Arc'teryx in 2022 for an initial 3 winter term. This year was a very successful first year of our expanded partnership, and as Owen alluded to, the financial support coming from their winter film tour and other events is just so valuable to us. So thanks so much to the Arc'teryx team. They're a great bunch of people and they really care about this community and they're part of it. So we really appreciate everything that they do. Supporting that as well, Thredbo, they've provided us with ongoing funding and have been great partners in hosting the Avalanche Training Centre in New South Wales. They've given away a lot of incredible monthly prizes like the guided tours and a bunch of field observations coming from them as one of our Alpine guiding partners. So thank you very much to everyone at Thredbo. We really do appreciate what you do for us. And our partners, so those who provided prizes throughout the membership drive, Salomon, Out of Optics, Thredbo, POC, Black Crows, Burton, the Australian School of Mountaineering, Avalanche Training Australia, Alpine Access Australia, the Climbing Company, Wild, Capital Brewing, Blizzard Academy, and of course, Arc'teryx. Thank you everyone for your support of our members. A big thing for us is to continue giving our members great value. So do appreciate if anyone's got ideas or feedback where you think we could bring additional value for members, please don't hesitate to put ideas forward to us. Into 2026, we're really looking to, as I mentioned, the government uniformed services space. We haven't hit our objectives there, so we will be seeking out some longer term funding and really working with those uniformed services around how we can be a medium for the community conversation when it comes to backcountry incidents and safety, etc. Membership, we want to continue to grow that sustainably, and as I mentioned, provide our members with great value. We will talk about membership costs shortly and other 2026 goals. With our sponsorship, we're going to continue to go deeper with the current partners that we've got and start moving into engaging non-snow industry partners, some that may give us some expanded reach and obviously financially may be able to support us further as well. We're definitely going to need to utilise volunteer support to engage government. So if you know of any suitable people out there, that is our #1 funding objective for 2026 and beyond. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you might be able to help us navigate that space. That's it from me. I'll pass on to Coralie for the Treasurer's report.
Okay, so we've got our financial statements. So the first one is our income statement, and I've got the last 3 years, and I've also got the year to date. So our financial year ends at the 31st of May each year, and for the last 2 years we've made a loss. Obviously we've had poor sort of snow conditions, but this year, so our financial year starts on the 1st of June, and we're currently running at a profit. So things like the events, the Arc'teryx events, that helped a bit, as well as getting our memberships have gone up as well. With our operating costs, so this year our forecasting costs were higher than the previous year due to better snow conditions. However, we bought a lot of merch last year, so that sort of pushed down the costs, or push up the cost last year. As far as our sort of balance sheet is going, so at the moment we are tracking where, we've started off in 23, we did have over 100, and we are losing sort of money. So so at the moment we're still sort of sustainable, but I guess how we go next year, at the moment we are tracking for a profit. So yeah, we're still sort of sustainable as we're going. And just for a commentary, so membership fees for the financial year for 26 were forecast about 50K. All the paid sponsorships are generally renewed early in the year, so we haven't got them in for next year. And then for this year, the forecasting costs were higher due to better snow. And our advertising is from the social media and the SIA Expo, which we aren't going to do this year. So we should get a profit for next financial year. And so then I just want to confirm the membership fees to stay the same at $50. And we haven't had any membership fees since we've MSC inception, so we are considering a modest increase, and we'll be searching for feedback from the membership base via survey. And I'll pass on to Ralph.
Hello. Yes, ATCs at Hotham and Thredbo. Next slide, please. Hotham started off with a new location. Too fast, young man. With a new location, and we want to thank Mount Hotham Ski Patrol in helping us set that one up. The same goes for Thredbo. Both ski patrol teams have been on hand setting up. and at Thredbo packing down as well. At Hotham, not so much because there was no one working anymore. So next one, please. Owen. This shows us the readout of uses and exercises at the ATCs. Thredbo is lagging a little bit behind to Mount Hotham. And that's partly due to Thredbo having been buried for some of the season, as you can see in the pictures. While the new location at Mount Hotham was very welcomed by the ski patrol and by the AST service providers, as it's a really good location. So they clocked up quite a few exercises, as well as a lot of exercises during the Victorian Backcountry Festival. Yeah, so we're looking at, what do we have, 73 at Thredbo and over 160 at Hotham. I sometimes wonder if it has the lack of exercises at Thredbo has to do with the fact that people think you need to have lift access. But when you look at the map, you can reach that ATC with a 5-kilometer skin along the Alpine, Australian Alpine walking track. And it brings you up to 1,950 meters. So there's really no excuse for everybody every once in a while on their ski tour to drop in there and do an exercise. And when it comes to the amount of snow, as we see in that picture there, the ATC is our asset, ours as a collective. And I think if you as a member come by and see that much snow, get your shovel out, do a bit of digging, create a nice little lounge area where you can sit around while your touring buddies are doing an exercise. Sit down, have some lunch, maybe reflect on a better search scenario and hone your skills to really nail the beacon and probe search. Yeah, that's it. Next. Now, our remote cameras. There's a big shout out to Will McRae, whose tireless effort in setting these systems up. Got a little bit thumped this year with too much snow. And I do remember that members have always requested some photos and images from there, but we really have to make a decision whether we're going to spend some more money on making these setups a little bit more sturdy and longer. Some of them have to be quite a bit longer to poke out above the snow, and more reliable so that we could do that. Because if we promise and what happened this year and there's no images, we'll just be inundated by people going, where are my pictures of Feathertop? So yeah, big thanks to Will McRae. He's really done a lot of work there. Right, merch. We still have merch, and as you've all seen, it sits in our bank. So Christmas is coming up. You know where to get it. T-shirts, hoodies, books, everything. Thanks.
Thanks, Rolf. So I'm Craig, back again to talk about our goals for 2026. But before we get to the goals for 2026, we'll review what we said last year in 2025. Owen, thank you. Everyone wanted more snow, and it delivered, as you've heard a few times in this presentation. I kind of quickly crunched the numbers, but about 65% more snow this year across New South Wales and Victoria from the last couple of years. And at the end of this year, I wasn't thinking that I'd have to go back to Canada. It turns out the winters in Australia are just fine. Thank you very much. Grow the membership base beyond the current plateau, Sam addressed. Continuing the mentorship of the field team. Yes, thanks again to Tyson because he came here for the season, he had a lot of availability. And so he was always happy to go out with as many people as possible. So he did a lot of mentorship for the team. As I mentioned, we incorporated our surface hazard scale into the reports this year. that was really well received. And then community outreach and education through our Alpine Guiding Partners, and 3 new partners were added. But this has already been said as well, is that we're continuing to try to work on the government side of things for 2026. So we'll keep that in there. Goals for 2026, aside from the government funding. As I mentioned earlier, want to boost the Victoria field observations. It's a great team down there. They do a lot of excellent work. There's just a little bit more, I guess, challenges, if you will, in terms of just the proximity, getting up to the field observation spots. It's just a bit more challenging. And we are a little bit New South Wales heavy, so we'll see if we can spread that out a little bit more. As has been mentioned, there's a lot of things going on in the background with events and communications and whatnot. And so I think it would be great to have some sort of volunteer coordination role and to help us manage the more things that we're taking on each year. Professional development for the observation team is always in the forefront of our minds. We do have a lot of people going through for the first courses, and then it's looking at helping people to take that next step. So those that have their level 1 or their ARM5, the ARM5 is in New Zealand, getting the 6, or if they have their level 1 from Canada, getting the level 2. Outdoor leadership programs for schools. Tom Brazier is in the room here. This year, as I mentioned, Kyle Boys went to a school in Dinner Plain, and I went to the school in Jindabyne, and Tom's opened up the door for some ACT schools. And yeah, just getting more kids involved because they're the future of this industry, and having them tuned into the hazards of the backcountry. And then lastly, just the Southern Hemisphere Alpine Conference in New Zealand. We'd like the Mountain Safety Collective to have a presence there. So I'm going to hand it over to Owen, who's going to run us through the committee changes or
lack of changes.
lack thereof. Yeah.
So I think at the last AGM, we had thought Craig and Rolf were no longer eligible to stand. So the rule is you can have 3 2-year terms, and then you have to roll off for at least a year. After that AGM, we went back and did a review, realized Craig has only done 5 years of a 6-year stint, and Rolf had actually just been on a subcommittee for a period of time and wasn't actually an official committee member. So that's freed things up for Craig to be able to stay on for 1 more year, and Rolf for another 2-year term. And the other factor we had was Melissa McHugh, our secretary. She'd stepped in as a partial term in 2022. So our decision is for consistency to have the committee remain unchanged. Anyone's welcome to stand at any time for the committee. We didn't have any nominations this year. But we will be having some succession planning required through 26 and 27 as term limits start approaching for people that are currently on the committee. And so the other thing that we've done is we've established 2 classes of terms. So there's a first class is from 24 to 26, which includes Craig, Coralie, and Sam. And then the second class from 25 to 27, myself, Rolf, and Mel. And that'll just help us with a structure going forward to make sure we're keeping track of who's had which terms. And over to Mel to run through some Q&A.
All right. So this is everyone's sort of opportunity in the text box here to write if you've got any questions. I can see none. There was one from Tony, but it's been answered. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about that, and you can pop them in the text box. But I've got a couple from the registrations that I'll read out. So the first question, is it possible to include online access to the education series to benefit those who can't attend in person? So like something like Zoom, perhaps. Do we have ability to do that?
I can probably answer that. So we have had that question in the past, and it's primarily a case of resources again. So there's quite a lot of work that goes into the Alpine Education Series, just to kind of coordinate all the speakers for the night. By the time we actually get to thinking about setting up a camera for a couple of people to watch, it's very low down our priority list at this point, unfortunately. We can consider it for future years. I think the simpler approach would be is that we try and record the sessions and then publish those separately, so that we're not trying to muck around with live streaming and that kind of thing. And one thing I personally did this year was the talk that I was giving at the Alpine Education Series. I just did a recorded version that I threw up on the blog, so that you can see that there. So it has been considered, and we'll try and make more of a concerted effort to at least have recordings of those in future years.
And if I can add to that, Owen, part of our consideration was that expansion into the mountain towns as well, to get away from the city centers, or to add, I should say, to the city centers, to try to capture more people.
They were pretty successful. Well, the one in Bright was, so hopefully we have more of those.
Jindabyne was great.
Yeah, I imagine. And I've got two members had a similar question. So the possibility of developing an online forum, potentially on the MSC website, to build an online community where members can meet other backcountry riders and skiers to tour with. Do we have the ability to add that onto our website? Is that something we might be able to offer?
Again, it's something that's come up in the past. Ironically, the photo that's on screen, I was standing on top of one of those peaks with one of the people that asked this question. So I think part of this, in my mind, is we do have a lot of people that have offered to volunteer to help with initiatives like this. And our failing, or our restriction as a committee, has been we haven't been able to activate those volunteers effectively. So like Craig talked about, one of our key initiatives for the coming year is that we work out a way to coordinate volunteers and identify initiatives that we want to be able to apply those volunteers to, and then get initiatives like this up and running. From a technical perspective, it's not too hard. So we have looked at doing like a private Facebook group in the past. I think our hesitancy with that is that we don't want to replace or compete with the Australian Backcountry Facebook group, which has a lot more activity. But there may be something that we can incorporate for MSC members that adds to the value of membership. So
awesome. There's no other questions, but we have had some great little messages. We're all doing a great job. Everyone appreciates what we do. That's great.
Can I tell a little quick anecdote? So
yes.
I was in a ski lodge, and I think this kind of just speaks to the gratitude that we have for people saying thank you. So I was in a little ski lodge cooking dinner. I had an MSC cap on, and someone cooking the dinner opposite was like, "Oh my God, MSC. I love those guys. I use their reports every day. I go to ski touring. How awesome are they?" I was like, yeah, they're pretty awesome. She had no idea who I was or anything like that. So it's really nice to get that feedback. Thank you.
That's great. We have actually had one question from Jason. So he's asked, what are the specific goals for engaging government, and how can members help?
Do you want to start answering that, Sam?
Yeah, I can kick that off. So historically, one component of that is obviously grants and funding. And the second piece around it is around that piece for us being connected into uniformed services, whether that be search and rescue, police, others, being a medium for communication into those communities as well. But also those partnerships. If you have a look at New Zealand and some of the other markets around the world, that government relationship, uniformed services relationships are key to the scaling of those organisations to where they're a funded entity. So I think Owen can potentially expand on some of that, but primary goal from my side is the baseline funding and then the legitimacy and relationships with uniformed services.
So I think on the uniformed services side of things, we had a great result with New South Wales Police Search and Rescue. Were involved in the Alpine Education Series this year. They actually reached out to us to ask if they could be part of that, to talk about their concerns and advice for backcountry travel. So we've got some nascent relationships there, but not necessarily at the level of, hey, here's some funding. The other really key part of it is there was an incident a couple of years ago on the main range that resulted in a coronial inquest, and the advice from that coronial inquest was primarily focused around community education. And the discussion that we've had as a committee is we are in that role already. We're already being referred to as a source for that information by services like SES. So when we send out an alert warning people about current conditions, that's often being shared by organisations like the SES. So I think it's just us taking that step to consolidate a narrative there that we are already providing many of those educational services and channels, and with a bit more funding to enable us to expand on those initiatives, then we can augment the uniform services. And obviously there's huge cost savings to reduce very expensive rescues. So.
I feel like you may have answered this or not. Did you see Daniel's message there to build on Jason's question? What quantum of funding is MSC seeking from government or other donors to achieve the 2026 goals?
So I think
the medium and long term.
Our constraint at the moment is a lot of our kind of core services are based on volunteer effort. And if we were going to kind of really up the ante in terms of educational programs and things like that, we would need to fund some roles, primarily in a contractor capacity. But yeah, we'd need to model what those initiatives are, what the cost of delivering those would be on a real world basis, and then seeking the funding from there. And yes, Jason, we have considered writing to our local members. We do have a plan for all of this. Again, it's just the constraint of time to actually activate it. So, Rolf, did you want to say something?
Yes, well, in regards to what funding we're looking for example, with our remote systems, if we want to build them more reliable, we just have to sit down and work out a budget. What would it cost to build something more reliable? Make sure we got approval from Parks to put the infrastructure to hold a more sturdy camera setup. And but that's definitely something to work on.
Ironically, we did apply for some grant funding for those remote camera systems, and weren't successful because it wasn't meeting the needs of the local community, apparently.
Well, that might all change now.
Huh?
Might all change now that we had a couple of fatalities up there.
Yeah. Okay, that's it, I believe, for the questions. Now
there's one there from Samuel Van.
Sorry, have I missed one?
Ideas of documentation of historical stories and events.
I don't understand the second part of that question, but I have gone through the chronology of the historical events and stories in the area and have just a really skeleton amount of them. And then we continue to talk to our different services about the current events that are happening and keeping track of those But if you want to reach out to me directly, Samuel, I can let you know what I found.
Okay, I don't think I missed any more. Sorry about that. Awesome. Owen, door prizes.
Well, you can read them out.
Oh, what? Where are they? Hold on.
Oh, I thought you'd seen them. All right.
Wait, I haven't.
Our highly scientific approach to releasing these door prizes was closing my eyes and pointing at the list.
Hey, okay, I've seen them now.
First prize goes to Evan, and I think that means Evan Howard from Terra Rossa Gear. Second one is Louise Capel, and I've got her email there. And completely coincidentally, Tom Brazier was mentioned quite a few moments ago, and he was completely randomly chosen. So, yeah, we'll reach out to you about sizing. There's caps and t-shirts and tracker caps. So we'll contact you separately about sizing and delivery information. Thank you for your support.
Awesome. Okay, I think that wraps up the AGM for 2025. Thanks to everyone for your continued support and for coming along tonight. And we'll see you next year. We're on the slopes. So I now officially bring this AGM to a close.